Did the New York Jets end up actually breaking the New England Patriots? How about DeVonta Smith's 3-year extension? And of course, we got to talk about the new look New York Jets in their uniforms that came out this past week. We are back here on a Wednesday edition of Football with Faria.
It's time for Football with Faria.
You got to get the offense right, and you got to be able to be aggressive. They put up 14 against the secondary. That is driving me up a freaking wall right now.
Now here's your host, Nick Faria.
Alrighty, Wednesday evening, Football with Faria. It's been a little bit, guys. Apologies, but we are back on the airwaves. It's been a pretty crazy week of NFL news, so we're going to talk about it all today. For those of you jumping on for the first time, welcome. For those of you returning, welcome back. A lot to get to today. We can talk about a lot of different things. We can start with the Jets in their new look uniforms. We can talk about DeVonta Smith and his 3-year extension. But I think we're all here for one particular point, right? We're here for one particular point, and it's that Robert Saleh, Trevor Siemian, and the New York Jets have broken the New England Patriots. And when I say by broken, I mean a complete fundamental collapse of calamities. I mean atrocious collapse of calamities. And when I'm talking about that, of course, for those of you guys that haven't seen it yet, go on ESPN. ESPN came out with a report, or a trio of reporters headlined by Jeremy Fowler, came out with a report today essentially explaining why Bill Belichick, former head coach of the New England Patriots, does not have a head coaching job this season. And one of the reasons, really the only major reason that matters, is because Robert Kraft went out of his way to tell the Atlanta Falcons, don't hire Bill. Think how crazy that is. And again, I joke when I say that the Jets broke the Patriots. Because one game at the end of the year was not going to save Bill Belichick's job at all. I think we all understand that. Jets fans that are on here, we all understand that, right? It wasn't going to be – Belichick wasn't going to beat the Patriots and then magically return next season. So it's nice to joke about. But you want to talk about dysfunction. You want to talk about horrific ownership. And the one thing that I'll tie this to that I think is very important, because Jet fans get on Woody Johnson for a lot of different things, right? You guys get on him for a couple of different reasons. Season passes, tickets, MetLife turf being turf and not a grass field. All those things come into play. And I'm not sitting here saying that Woody Johnson's a bad owner. I'm not even saying that Robert Kraft is a bad owner. Kraft has won 6 Super Bowls. His methodology of rebuilding the Patriots has worked. But you cannot look at the last 4 months of what Kraft has done and not said to yourself, what is this dysfunction? This is a girlfriend choosing to break up with her boyfriend being nonchalant about it, and the girlfriend stooping so low to try and show that she's the one that won the breakup. Think how crazy this is that Robert Kraft, a 6-time Super Bowl owner, has been to the Super Bowl 10 times as an owner, rebuilt the Patriots in his image. And what I mean by that is when the Patriots were in the 90s, we kind of forget how pathetic they were as a franchise. They were potentially moving to St. Louis. That is how bad things got for New England. Fans didn't care about them. Football is not a New England sport. Football is more of the East Coast side, sort of that central East Coast side, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington. Those are football towns. New England's not a football spot. New England, I would argue, is more of a hockey spot than anything else. But Robert Kraft came in and rebuilt the Patriots in his image. He hired Bill Parcells. He has that Patriot place, which he's done a phenomenal job with. He has made the Patriots a multi-billion-dollar corporation. He hired Bill Belichick, who brought him to 6 Super Bowls, who brought in Tom Brady, arguably the greatest football player of our generation. And through all that, when it was time to end the era of Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft could have easily, hey, we love Bill. We'll do whatever we can to support him. He's not going to be coaching with us anymore. We need a fresh voice. But that's not what Kraft did. And if you look at the report by Jeremy Fowler on ESPN, Kraft essentially spoke to Arthur Blank of the Atlanta Falcons and said, you cannot trust Bill Belichick. Do not hire him. He is blackballing the greatest coach of the modern era for no reason other than he needs to win the breakup. It's his. He's the reason why New England's won 6 Super Bowls. You want to talk about the Jets' dysfunction? People will look at the Jets' dysfunction in the locker room and say, well, Aaron Rodgers is a clown. He's talking about this and he's talking about that. Robert Saleh does nothing as a head coach. Awful. Do you really want to be where the Patriots are right now? Do Jet fans want to be? And I'm not talking about past history, guys. I'm not talking about would you rather the winning 6 Super Bowls. But would you rather have an owner firing a coach and then bad-mouthing him, not just in an article? Because I don't know if you guys have seen The Dynasty, that Apple TV series, but it was essentially 7-8 episodes of why Bill Belichick is a terrible human being. So we can talk about the Jets' dysfunction, and we're going to talk about the Jets in a little bit. We have some topics to get through today. And I'm going to get to all of your questions. If you guys want to call in, I'm going to send the invite here in the chat. But if you really want to talk about why the Patriots have failed, Robert Kraft has to be at the top of that list, doesn't he? I want to make sure I get this out. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. All right. So the link in the description in YouTube here, the conversation in YouTube, not YouTube, this chat on StreamYard. Make sure you guys click it. We'll try to get everybody on eventually. But again, circling back, if you want to talk about the New York Jets and their dysfunction, they are nothing compared to what the New England Patriots are running through right now. The dynasty, this latest article, it is a sham of shams of what Robert Kraft is trying to do. Absolutely incredible. And it's crazy because when you look at the Boston sports teams, the Bruins are heading to the playoffs. The Celtics are considered favorites in the Eastern Conference. These two teams are juggernauts. The Red Sox are quietly rebuilding, even though ownership is standing in the way of there. I would argue right now, Robert Kraft might be the worst of the 4 owners in Boston right now. Because he can't leave well enough alone. He has to be the winner in this power struggle with Bill Belichick, even though Bill is gone. Just absolutely incredible. Incredible. And of course, we talk about some of the news of the day, news of the week. The other story outside of Bill Belichick, before we get to the Jet stuff, is DeVonta Smith, Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver, signing a 3-year, $75 million extension with Philadelphia, the team that drafted him in the first round in 2021. And for those of you that are Eagle fans jumping on, again, appreciate it. For Jet fans everywhere, this is a very important lesson. A very important lesson. Because, like it or not, DeVonta Smith making $25 million a year annually on average directly implicates Garrett Wilson when he is looking for an extension next year. It directly implicates Garrett Wilson and the New York Jets. Philadelphia, we've said this before, guys. I know a majority of you understand this. Howie Roseman is the best GM in football. I think we can all agree on that. What he is able to do in trades, in the draft, in the salary cap, all of it is just top notch. But the one thing he does better than everybody else is that he stays ahead of contract negotiations. And what I mean by that is when a player is up for a new deal, he does not waste time giving him the new deal or moving on from him. A perfect example, of course, is Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick was looking for a new deal last year. Philadelphia was going to let him play that out, potentially negotiate in the offseason. Reddick did not have the same year he had the year prior, so Philadelphia shipped him off to the Jets. Like it or not, in terms of the compensation, Philadelphia stayed ahead of the negotiation. With DeVonta Smith, this is a bona fide number one wide receiver that is a number two in this offense only because A.J. Brown is a top 5 player at his position. Philadelphia has 2 top 10 wide receivers in the game right now. DeVonta Smith is one of them. So it's very important that Philadelphia, if they were going to give him an extension, that it be done as soon as possible because CeeDee Lamb needs a new deal. Justin Jefferson needs a new deal. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. All these guys are going to be negotiating new deals this entire offseason. And the starting point is going to be DeVonta Smith's contract. $25 million a year annually may seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of players that are about to be re-signed, he's going to be extremely underpaid. Extremely underpaid. And that's where the Jets come into play with Garrett Wilson, because if you're New York, you only have to look back from last year to understand the importance of staying ahead of negotiations. And the example, of course, that I'm bringing up is Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams was coming off a first-team All-Pro year, 13 sacks, was absolutely phenomenal. Everyone agreed, including the Jets, everyone agreed that Quinnen Williams was going to get the extension that he wanted. But what did the Jets do? They negotiated and negotiated and negotiated. And what happened? Jeffrey Simmons was locked up before him. Dexter Lawrence was locked up before him. The Jets did not stay ahead of the Quinnen Williams negotiation. And one of the reasons why they were so entrenched in signing free agents this year on 1-year deals, 2-year short-term deals, is because they know that they are going to have to pay Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, and Elijah Vera-Tucker. Next season, most likely. I'd say next season, most likely, but I think Elijah Vera-Tucker, an extension could probably be done during the year. But you're talking about your prime draft class. Your prime draft class has to be re-signed next year. Because Breece Hall, the one thing people forget, Hall does not have a 5th-year option. He is a free agent after the 2025 season. It's imperative that if we're going based on players that need new deals, Breece Hall's at the top of the list. But right behind him has to be Garrett Wilson. Because, again, like I say, it's all about staying ahead of the market. It's all about staying ahead. You can jump corners with Sauce Gardner and give him the extension he wants. You can even do that with Jermaine Johnson. You cannot skimp out on paying a wide receiver, particularly a number 1 wide receiver like Garrett Wilson, even if you draft Rome Odunze. Even if Odunze or Brock Bowers is the pick at 10. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, those contracts need to be extended next year, and it's got to be immediate. You have to jump every team to make sure those extensions are done. Now, if I were to make a prediction, we're in April 17th, 2024. If I were to make a prediction next year, I think Garrett Wilson is going to sign this exact contract. 3 years, $75 million. I think it's going to be the exact contract because Philadelphia knows that you need to surround your quarterback with top talent. It doesn't matter who he is. And yes, Philadelphia is now paying essentially 2 receivers an average of $25 million each. But how many teams out there have top 10 playmakers on either side of the field? None. Very few. Very few at that. So when I look at Philadelphia re-signing DeVonta Smith, they did their job. They did their job. They were supposed to do that. This is how the organization runs. I don't think anyone was surprised that Philadelphia jumped the gun and gave Smith the contract extension before CeeDee Lamb and before Jamar Chase and before Jalen Waddle. All these things have come into play. But Philadelphia did exactly what they were supposed to do. They dictated the market themselves. The New York Jets need to do that now too. And they're going to have to do it next year when it comes to Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Sauce Gardner and Jermaine Johnson. Oh, and Elijah Vera Tucker too. This is what you do. Welcome to the next step. You have these great players, and this is where Aaron Rodgers comes into play. Aaron Rodgers is probably going to be able to take a pay cut and will probably want to keep this core intact. When he retires, the top players are all going to be in the middle of extensions. You draft a young quarterback, and now you've got a young quarterback on a rookie deal with elite talent around him. The one thing the Jets have failed to do with almost every single rookie quarterback outside of Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez came to a team that was championship ready right away. Right away. The Jets had failed to do that for any other quarterback since. They have an opportunity here with Garrett Wilson, with all these young guys, to give them long-term extensions so they don't have to worry about any of them. They could be in an incredible cap situation if they just stay ahead of the market. So you want to talk about big takeaways? Right now for Philadelphia, they get the guy they need. They need to make sure that they have re-signed all of their top young talent. They have done so. If you look at this offense right now, only one player on Philadelphia's offense is over the age of 30. One player over the age of 30. And they are all locked in until 2026. 2026. That is 3 years. Philadelphia has their offensive core for 3 years. And they still have about $25, $27 million in cap space, which is going to carry over into next season. Before they pay their draft picks, before they go into the draft with 3 picks in the top 64. This is how you continue to build a contender. We can talk about the collapse. We can talk about all the things that Philadelphia has done wrong in the last few years. But you cannot deny that they are in a perfect situation to continue to be competitive solely because they stay ahead of the market. That is a massive, massive takeaway from here. Because I think a lot of Jet fans, we kind of get lost in the picture. We kind of get lost in what we want this team to do. You're seeing this now with the draft strategy. If they stay ahead of the market, they are going to be in a significantly better cap situation in just a couple of years. It's not going to take long to improve it. All right. So I have teased this before. I know we've talked about this on Twitter already, but I want to get everyone's opinions on the new Jets uniforms. They came out on Monday, Tuesday, whatever it was. New Jet uniforms essentially going back in time to the 70s and 80s look, right? That's the old Jets logo. It's the old Jets look. And it looks pretty damn good. So I want to get your opinion on this, guys. You guys want to call in, give me your takes on the logos. You guys want to give me a take on the jerseys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments as well. We'll try to get to everybody today. But again, it's a clean look. I have my own opinions on it. I'm going to give it off in a little bit. But I do have a caller on right now. And of course, to kick it off, it's Johnny. Johnny, how's everything going?
Hey, I came on because you're the only person I know that could talk Mets with me right now.
What a 180 the Mets have done. They look like the best team in baseball.
Dude, right?
Best team in baseball.
Man, if that's not a typical Mets thing, right? Just throw us through the ringer for the first couple of games and then
Incredible.
Now I'm not trying to say anything, keeping my mouth shut, hoping that this continues. But how about that sweep today, man?
I'm glad you brought this up. I'm glad you brought up today's game because I watched every single little bit of it. I'm unemployed. I have nothing else to do. I watched the game and I look and I see Severino dominate. I see the lineup consistently poking hits, not swinging for power, not doing this or doing that, just solid contact. And I look and I say, that's the freaking 2022 Mets again. They're back. Those guys are back.
Dude, and then even last night's game, going into the eighth inning, then Nemo comes in and just hits contact and drops a looper right over the freaking third baseman. And I was like, and then bases were loaded, and I was like, holy crap. Dude, it's I don't know. I'm just trying to stay quiet. I'm not trying to talk about it as much, but I want to talk about it because, dude, I'm so excited. I keep saying that I think this year we could go ahead and we would be able to go and get a wild card position. And then at that point,
I think that's a safe bet. Yeah.
As long as we're in, you never know. Because, dude, our pitching's not bad whatsoever.
It's been fantastic. They're the number 1 ERA in baseball.
I know, and it's the craziest thing to me. So, anyways, back to the stuff. So I was very upset at the whole DeVonta Smith thing because I instantly was like, crap, they just put the market out for what freaking Garrett Wilson's going to want and probably going to want more, right? Because, there might be a case that could be said that Garrett Wilson might be the better player, and it could mean this year you might see what he truly is. Because,
But here's the question, though, Johnny, and this is where I say the Jets aren't in a bad situation yet with Garrett Wilson because CeeDee Lamb hasn't gotten his extension, Justin Jefferson hasn't gotten his extension, and it doesn't look like the Vikings and Cowboys are anywhere close to what these guys want. If Garrett were to come up and have an unbelievable season where I think he sets the record for targets in a single year, I still have that as my prediction. If that happens and he asks for 27-30 million, are you not giving it to him?
I would, because we've not had a wide receiver like this in how many years, and we've consistently talked about it.
Yeah.
Right. So pay our guys, man. Pay the guys that are here. Don't even get into the conversations of the talks and just prolong the inevitable to be able to go ahead and sign them here. Get it done. Right. This will talk to the other people and say, look, they're taking care of their own. We're here. Let's go. And yeah, so I don't know. That's
no. I need your opinion. Your views on the Jets uniforms.
I love it, man, because it's very dear to my heart. Because look, being a Jets fan, right? You just don't get you don't get these fans that just wake up one morning and they're like, you know what? The Jets are doing so great. I'm going to be a Jet fan today, right? So it's something that's molded in from birth. I feel like it's generational, right? My father is the reason why I'm a Jet fan. I remember going super young to games, right? My dad worked for Hess, right? So we used to get tickets to go watch the games. Awesome. He knew John Hess at that point as well. So, which was awesome, right? Awesome. I'm a Long Island kid. I grew up in Hempstead. Hofstra is literally right there.
I probably lived right by your house. If that's the case, I probably lived right by your house, right outside campus.
Dude, exactly. So I remember you probably remember Wayne Corbett's bar
Of
that was like
course.
literally right
Well,
across.
here's the thing. You got to understand something, Johnny. I don't mean to be rude. I don't. So I know who Wayne Corbett was. By the time I got to school, his bar or whatever it was,
Was
I
gone.
haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. It hadn't been there for at least 5 years when I got there. So I don't mean to date you or anything.
I mean,
I've never actually seen it.
I'm 36, so I'm not that.
You're not that old, but you're
No.
still almost a decade older than me.
But I just remember like again like in the same area, Gastineau's bar,
Yeah.
right? Like those are the type of things that I remember that my
Because they
father
were by
was,
the university. They practiced at the university. Absolutely.
exactly. So like I remember all of that growing up and everything. So for me, it's such a like bringing the old generation with the new generations together. It's like the perfect marriage. And I keep talking about the black uniforms. A lot of people don't like it, right?
Mhm.
To me, it's me and my father's favorite just because it brings the old school with a little bit of the new school twist into it together. And hopefully, right, this black jersey is the jersey that's going to go ahead and give you the legacy of us continuing to win for a long time to come. So that's how we're looking at it, hoping
Okay.
that this continues and everything, but we'll see. And dude, between you and I, right? Look, I think I've told you, but I'm a big Georgia Bulldogs fan, right? And
Mhm.
I love Bowers. I think Bowers is great, right? And do I want Bowers at 10? No, I don't, because I still would love to have me like an Odunze if Neighbors was to fall, or O-line, right? I think I've said that I want Fuaga if he's there. Fuaga or Latham, I'm golden, right? But dude, he was there Monday picking out his jersey, number 19. This fits me. He took all the pictures that needed to be. Dude, there's just no coincidence of having a player like that with Aaron Rodgers coming in. And today on another show, right? That is it's a bigger show that's on ESPN and YouTube,
Mm.
right? Talks about it, about Brock Bowers and the connection with Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, dude, are these guys literally telling me right now like it's pretty much a done deal?
Well,
Or
I wouldn't call it a done deal, but I'll put it this way. Daniel Jeremiah spoke for a very long time today regarding the Jets and their pick. And essentially, he said they could trade down and get an offensive lineman. If they do, Fautanu, Fuaga, those are the players that they'll probably want. But if a deal is not made and it's between Bowers, Odunze, and Fortanu, they're taking Bowers. And if that's coming from Jeremiah, the point that I'm saying is the crescendo of the Georgia tight end is growing to a point where when I come out with my first mock, it's either a trade back or there's very little argument to say they're not taking him at 10.
agreed. I mean, I don't know, man. The thing is, and I've seen him play like since a freshman, and as soon as he stepped on the freaking field, he was a menace.
Yeah.
Like there was a consistency of him making plays, and just the matchup. He was a matchup nightmare. Like nobody knew what to put on him and see what he was gonna do, and then just the after the yards that he would do, or after contact at that, and he's in a good conference. So this whole thing about like he's not now
I
NFL.
wouldn't say the only issue to Bauer's downside to me, and I think it's two pronged. It's one, you don't take Kyle Brady over Warren Sapp. And what I mean by that is you don't take a tight end over a position of higher value. Brady had a good career, but you could have had Warren Sapp. And I think that's where Jet fans kind of like, they're kind of forgetting a little bit of their history where, listen, they could take the tight end, they could take the receiver, and it could work out really, really well. But then all of a sudden, you're going back to the tackle draft next year in a weaker class.
I mean, you're right, but what is it to say that, and I want to throw this at you, that I don't know if you remember when Trent Williams was with Washington and he was
Oh yeah.
injured.
No. Do I know Trent Williams in Washington? That bleep and bleep was in my team's ass the entire time.
So that's what I'm saying. So like it's one of those where I'm like he went to San Fran and he just had a resurface of his freaking reemergence, not resurface, a reemergence of his career, wanting to play more. That could possibly happen with that. And maybe he says, you know what? I want to win a chip. What do I need to do? It happened with Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron was like, you know what? It's not about me. I've done my time. I've made my money. Why the hell not? Let's go ahead and put that stuff towards somebody else. Morgan Moses, same thing. And then we get 4 more years out of these guys.
It's all going to depend. It's all going to depend on a lot of things, Johnny. And Johnny, thank you for the call again, man.
Appreciate you, man.
It's always great to see you. And listen, I'm going to get to the draft in a little. I'm going to get to sort of my thoughts on the uniforms in a little bit. But on this draft conversation, I think it's very important to remember some of these things. When you look at the great teams in the NFL, what is the consistent thing all of them have? All of them. Kansas City Chiefs, 49ers, Philadelphia, Dallas, Cincinnati, Baltimore. What do they all have? They invest in the offensive line more than any other position group. If they're not taking an offensive lineman or a quarterback or a wide receiver, they're taking a defensive lineman in round 1. There are very few positions of value that you can look at and say teams must trade up for this player. They must. This is where the Brock Bowers conversation gets really, really difficult to have because a lot of fans want the receiver. They want the pass catcher because Aaron Rodgers has never been given a first-round talent on his team. A player drafted while he was with the team as a skill guy in the first round. The only one was Mercedes Lewis. In that retrospect, Bowers makes sense. Odunze makes sense. But the question becomes, and I said this before in an article, I said this before on JetCast, on the Jake Asman Show, I've said it everywhere. If you're the Jets and an injury to Garrett Wilson and Tyron Smith go down, they both go down, which position group are you more worried about? Are you worried about receiver, even though Aaron Rodgers is at 100%? Are you worried about receiver or the guy protecting Rodgers' blind side? Every day of the week, I will tell you the main focus should be the offensive line. It should be. And I think for the most part, from what I'm hearing, from what other people are hearing, it sounds to me like the Jets are going to be open for business at 10. They are going to look to see if they can trade back. If they do not get the deal they want, though, they're taking Bowers. That's my understanding. That is currently my understanding right now. If things could change, they may not even have a full decision yet. They may not have their decision. But I'm inclined to believe Johnny here, where the first time they come in, these players come in for voluntary workouts, Brock Bowers is visiting. Really? I mean, it's easy to connect the dots here. And I'm not saying that's the reason, but Bowers' skill set in the slot is going to help this team in the long run in 2024 and beyond. So, yes, it's a smart pick. I've said this before. The Jets can do no wrong at 10. Any selection they make, you can make the argument that it's the right move. The only one that I will say is an even better spot is if they draft an offensive lineman. Fashanu, Fuaga, Fautanu, Latham, any of those guys. That's the difficult part that people are going to have to deal with because there are going to be Jet fans. I love you guys to death. I love all of you to death. I said this before. Eagle fans are just miserable people, miserable to the nth degree. Jets fans are bipolar. And all the excitement that the Jets have had over the last week, the last month, would go by the wayside the minute fans find the player that they didn't want the Jets to take, and they still took him anyway. I love you guys to death. You're the most bipolar fan base I've ever seen in my life. You're not miserable. You're bipolar. Miserable belongs in Philadelphia. These guys just, whatever happens, they're not happy. It doesn't matter. Jalen Hurts had his press conference today. I wanted to talk about it, but there really was no point to it. And there were people pissed off that Jalen Hurts and his quote-unquote Instagram quotes were a bad thing for the franchise. People are sick of them. Why? I have no idea. Makes no sense to me. But there are Eagle fans pissed off that voluntary workouts have begun, and Jalen Hurts said basic quotes. They're not happy about it. I don't understand why, but I don't get it. Jet fans, you're all freaking bipolar. You're all bipolar. If they take Romeo Dunze at 10 next week, there's going to be a contingent of fans saying Joe Douglas is the worst GM of all time. And if they take an offensive lineman, there's going to be a large contingent of fans saying Joe Douglas is not serious about competing in 2024. I love you guys to death. There will be no pleasing anyone next week. Anyone. So, yes, I think Bowers is going to be the pick at 10, only if they cannot get a deal done in a trade back. And before I go into the other comments and questions on the chat, again, if you guys want to call in, the link is here in the chat below. But I wanted to get my final thoughts on this Jets uniform, because I know Johnny was talking about the community and bringing fans back to the roots of the franchise. And yes, it's a great look. It's a great look. They look great. The uniforms are great. The logo looks great. Everything about it looks great. I think the Jets missed an opportunity. I think they missed an opportunity. And I'm going to say this solely as a 27-year-old reporter. I grew up in the 2000s. I watched football in the 2000s. Outside of the Philadelphia midnight green and the Steelers black and gold, I didn't think there was a better logo and uniform combo than the Jets in the 2000s. That jersey, that logo was pristine. Pristine, guys. And when they went back to the 70s and 80s and early 90s, I said, okay, this looks perfectly fine. But if we're being quite honest, which was the better look? The 70s and 80s or the 2000s? And I don't care who you are. I still think the answer is going to be the 2000s. The logo looks better. The jerseys look better. The players played in them better. I mean, it looked amazing. And I never understood why they went away from it to the awful 5-year stretch that they had. I never understood it. But when they said they were going back, it didn't make sense to me because that wasn't their best look. The 2000s was their best look. Man, those jerseys were great. I even said it and again, it's because, and I understand completely. I grew up in that era. I was a child watching football for the first time, and the jerseys that spoke to me were the ones that I saw on television. The Steelers. I lived in a Steelers household, so the Steelers were always on. I was an Eagles fan. I watched the Eagles all the time. I loved their uniforms. The other one that really piqued my interest was the Jets because it looked great, and it obviously looked a lot like Philadelphia's. Different shade of green, but I'm colorblind, so go screw. That's just again, I know everyone's happy about him. I know they all love him. I get it. I understand. they should have gone back to the 2000s. My official stance on this is not that it's bad, not that they did a bad thing. It is 100% they should have gone back to the 2000s. My opinion only, nothing else about it. We move on to the comments and questions. So we'll bring up credible commentator with an obvious question here that I knew was going to pop up the minute he went on live. Why do you go live at the same time as Jake? Well, credible commentator, I understand that I'm going on at the same time as Jake Gasman. That is not my intent to take his viewers or for him to take mine. He is phenomenal. I think I've been very honest about my opinion of Jake. He's helped me integrate myself into this community. I'm forever indebted to him. I'm an unemployed bastard here, guys. I got to go live sometime, and that sometime is 5 o'clock because my wife gets home at 7, and I would like to have dinner on the table to see my wife. That's where we're at. So, yes, Mondays, Wednesdays, 5 o'clock always is going to be the case when I go live. We are trying, as Dane also says in the comments, I'm looking to see if I can get some overall work done so I can do Saturday and Sunday shows. But at the same time, that's why I'm on today at the same time as Jake. Nothing against him. This is the time that I always go on. And I'd like to continue to have this consistent viewership build as well. So we move on. Question here from Dane. Comment here from Dane talking about the DeVonta Smith contract, 3 years, 75 and 51 guaranteed. Soured. Whoa, hold on here. I want to make sure I get this right. Dane, I want to know, are you serious here about this? 51 million guaranteed. Soured me on keeping Garrett. We might need to get his replacement. I hope he's kidding. Because I would vehemently disagree with this. Because this is actually a very fair deal for Garrett Wilson. And it's a very fair price for a number one receiver. When you draft great talent, you've got to pay great talent. And Dane makes this comment here about Quinnen re-signing as well. How many 15 to 20 annual guys can we hold? What's the record? Well, Philadelphia right now currently holds about 7. Jalen Hurts, Devontae, AJ, Landon, Dickerson, Lane Johnson, Darius Slay. Trying to think what else. So it's like 6 or 7. Philadelphia is able to pay him. The Jets can as well. I wouldn't be too worried about this, guys. I wouldn't be too worried. I hope you're kidding, Dane. I hope you are, because I vehemently disagree with getting rid of Garrett Wilson. Question here from S. Green. You think they will be scared to pay AVT because of injuries? Great question here. Great question. And it's kind of multi-layered, right? Because Elijah Vera-Tucker, when he's healthy, has played like one of the best guards in football, and he has been consistent in that point. When he's on the field, he's been great. Problem is, the last 2 seasons, he hasn't. So this year is going to be a very key off season for him because the Jets are going to have to make a decision. Do they honor his, do they exercise his 5th-year option? I certainly think they're going to try, but it's going to come down to if he's healthy. If he plays a full 17 games or plays 15, 16 games, that argument is there. If he doesn't and he sustains another injury, it's a lot harder to predict. It's a lot harder to predict. I have a feeling I know who this is. It's D-Mac. Don't know if I trust the Jets picking another tight end at the top of the draft. They don't have a very good track record, and we know how players underperform when they go to the Jets. Well, he says Giants, but clearly he says Jets. First off, I'm going to be quite frank because I think I know who this is. This is my uncle-in-law. As a Jets fan, for those of you that have seen him on the Jake Gasman show, Uncle Doug here asking a question. And he brings up a very good point. And this is kind of what I brought up with Johnny on when he called in. If you're the Jets and you're in a situation drafting between a tight end and an interior offensive lineman, whether it's a tackle, guard, center, whatever, Aren't you having flashbacks to when Kyle Brady was drafted? Everyone wanted Warren Sapp. Everyone wanted Warren Sapp. And they took Kyle Brady. Isn't that the same thing what's happening here outside, except for the fact that fans are actually clamoring for the opposite? They want a skilled guy. The Jets could take an offensive lineman. Joe Douglas has built an offense and built teams in the past through the trenches. He's done that consistently in Baltimore and in Philadelphia. It would go against everything he has done if he were to draft Brock Bowers over an offensive lineman. That's just my opinion. I think it would be a mistake. Yeah, Johnny here with a comment on the uniforms. No, Nick, it doesn't look like the old Kelly Green Eagles jerseys. Again, I'm going to make sure everyone understands this. I am colorblind. I cannot tell the difference a lot of times. When the Eagles and Jets are playing, it's very, very difficult for me if they're in a uniform combination similar to each other. If the Eagles are in the all blacks and the Jets are in their greens, it's very, very difficult. But at the same time, if we're talking about, and again, the old Eagles Kelly Green, you know what my opinion on them has been? Don't need them. The history of the Philadelphia Eagles was shit for decades in the Kelly Green. Everyone loved them because they looked great. They look great. Yeah, we're 6-10, but we look great while doing it. Hey, we just lost another wild card round, but we look great, so who cares? The Jets 2000s look was pristine. Absolutely pristine. Johnny, I know you could just call back. I do want to get to one quick comment here from Dane because we were talking about this before. But ultimately, he talks about how many 30 million annual guys can we have because I count Quinn and Sauce, possibly Jermaine. First off, Jermaine Johnson's not making 30 million. In order for him to make 30 million, he has to put up like Aaron Donald numbers. He's got to set the record for sacks. He's got to become Defensive Player of the Year. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So I think, if anything, Jermaine Johnson probably going to the last year of his deal before he signs an extension. He needs to show more than just being a dependable guy. He's a dependable, good pass rusher, but is he worthy of being a $20, $25 million player right now? The answer is no. And if you talk, Dane mentions this, Quinnen and Sauce, easily $25 million players. Easily. That's fair. You add Garrett Wilson, that's 3. Anyone else? You're not paying Breece Hall that money. Breece Hall would get probably around $10 million. You're not paying Breece that money. You don't have to pay Aaron that money. Who are we worried about paying? Garrett's the guy that you want to pay $30 million. He's the third guy. That's it. There's no one here else that is capable in terms of salary cap restraints and in terms of the market that's even to come close to $30 million. That's just where we're at right now. So to close off here today, we're going to bring back on Johnny. Johnny, welcome back. What you got?
So all right. So I want to talk with 2 things real quick, right? The colorblind thing. I feel you, bro. I'm on the same boat because I am as well. And it's the worst. Like my wife, for like my suits and stuff, when I got to go into work, she has to put the like the colors on the back, right, of my stuff. Mm-hmm. That's why I wear a lot of black, right?
Brittany just picks out my clothes for me.
Yeah,
I can't tell the difference. It's just like she'll look at me and I'll like go out to teach at Long Island. She's like, "You're wearing that, really?" And I'm like, what the hell do you want me to wear? And I'll wear like something green and blue. And she's like, those don't match. And I'm like, I can't tell the difference. So I don't know what you want from me.
Dude, exactly. That's funny because I remember I think it was the I don't know what game it was. It was the Bills and the Jets. And the Bills had like their red and green. And I couldn't tell them apart.
Oh, yeah.
It all like blended in together. And it was driving me nuts. I did want to say something real quick because I've been trying to get Dano to get his ass up here, right? Dano, the other night, we were talking about kind of what you were talking about, right? Because there's just going to be so many people that we have to pay and we're going to have to lose. He's been very high on regards of the secondary. It's not my take. This is Dano's take. And it really opened my eyes up when I was like, damn, he makes a lot of sense. Yes, right? The DJ Reed scenario, right? Why not pick up a secondary corner now that'll help alleviate some of that, amount that you're going to have to pay, so then we could pay all of the core 4 guys that we need to pay. We could still pay these guys and not have to worry about that, and our secondary stays intact. I'm probably butchering it really, really bad, because the way Dano said it, it made 150%.
Well, I think I get what you're saying here, because it comes down to staying ahead of the market, which means potentially getting rid of a guy like DJ Reed in order to be able to facilitate Sauce Gardner's payday, or doing this or doing that. They still have to re-sign Michael Carter, so that's also part of the conversation as well. And I'll end this here with you, Johnny. And again, I appreciate your call. Do you have any other points?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, right, with that piece of it, with the Sauce part of it, and then with Garrett and everything that you're getting ready to say, right? Oh my God, dude, I just threw the biggest blank, bro, in regards to it.
Good. It's all good, man. I appreciate it nonetheless. I'm gonna be back on. We're gonna try to be on Friday. So even then, if you don't get it, bring it back up Friday. We'll sure to make sure you have you on. So appreciate it, Johnny, again. But the one thing that I'll say that I think Dane and Johnny kind of forget here is that the salary cap continues to balloon to higher proportions. So while Jet fans may be worried about being able to re-sign some of their talents, I still think it's very likely that DJ Reed is going to be either traded or released and just allowed to walk in free agency. But Michael Carter, Sauce, Jermaine, Garrett, Brees, these guys are going to be re-signed. I wouldn't worry too much about it, because when you draft great players like this at premium positions, you don't trade them away. You don't trade them away, particularly when you will have them as high draft picks. We talk about Bryce Huff. He was an undrafted player who developed into a great player. Jermaine Johnson's a first-round pick. The Jets will be more inclined to re-sign Jermaine because of that first-round tag to him than anything else, because they don't want to seem like they whiffed on a first-round player when in reality they just didn't want to pay him. Something to think about as we near 1 week before the 2024 NFL Draft. Appreciate all of you guys for jumping on today. We'll try to be back on Friday. If not, we will continue to push our Monday show. And I'm also waiting to see what the plans are for Thursday, if I'm doing a live stream on draft night or if I'm going to be covering at One Jets Drive. I'll make sure all of you guys are aware of that in the long run. But appreciate all of you guys for jumping on. I will see you back on Monday.